So hi there. I'm Charlotte. I've been diagnosed with Parkinson's almost a year now, and I love fiction of any sort.
Fantastic.
I'm Emily. I've been diagnosed for 3 years now, and I guess I have to say my favourite genre is probably children's because I work in children's books, but I also love fiction and I love non-fiction. I love all books basically.
Brilliant, thank you.
Hello, I'm Jonathan, and I was diagnosed with Parkinson's about 5 years ago, but I've had it for at least 10 years. The symptoms building up over time, and I love fiction and non-fiction. I'm a pretty wide reader, so I just love reading.
So Charlotte, of the group here, you're the one most recently diagnosed, about a year ago, I think it was.
Yes.
So when you first were diagnosed, did you turn to books to try and find some answers to Parkinson's?
I did. I was really looking for something positive, educational, and just to find, a different sort of viewpoint from what I was hearing from neurologists, because I saw quite a few in the end.
And did you find that in books or not?
I did. And the first one that I read is The Brain That Changed Itself by Norman Doidge. And that was just so uplifting because it taught me so much more about neuroplasticity and all the different ways that your brain can kind of accommodate a certain amount of difficulty, and that you can find ways around some of the, brain injuries or brain challenges. And there was somebody in there who had PD, and they'd had a sort of novel treatment that had really helped their balance. And I was just so happy to find that, and it really sort of drove me on to find more books that were positive, and I carried on in that way. So.
And did you manage to find a couple more books then that are in the same sort of vein?
Yes, I've read recently a book by Guy Deacon about travelling through Africa by himself. He had Parkinson's for 10 years already, and he was trying to raise awareness and also challenge himself and meet people on the way and talk about how difficult it was to have Parkinson's in Africa, where drugs are not available, neurologists are not available. And again, that I felt really uplifting because I thought, he's done that, by himself. He's organised it all. He's planned it. He's dealt with the difficulty. Yeah, that really sort of challenged me to think about, okay, what can I do that's different and that's, sort of raising awareness, but still supporting people with Parkinson's.
Well, when I was diagnosed 3 years ago, the first thing I did, just like everyone else, is go on the internet. I literally was devastated by what I found there, especially like Parkinson's UK. It was all like terrible, just terrible. Like all the symptoms were the opposite of what I wanted and what I feel like I am as well, just like apathetic, everything bad. And I just thought I need inspiration in books. So as I searched, 2 books that I found that really inspired me, I still love them now, is Melissa McConaughey's The New Parkinson's Treatment, Exercise as Medicine. Show that there. She's actually the inventor of PD Warriors, which people may have heard of, the exercise program from Australia. And suddenly it was just like, well, first of all, it explained what Parkinson's was really simply, so I can actually understand it. And it just made me think like, okay, I've got Parkinson's, but it's up to me how I kind of choose to kind of cope with it and deal with it. I don't have to be a victim. I don't have to just be that horrible word progressive, like downhill all the way. I suddenly felt like, oh my God, there's hope. I can actually take action and actually do things. And it's a really practical guide. It has lots of exercises in it. And the idea is to actually do PD Warriors, which I didn't want to do because it's all Australian time. And it's like the time was really bad. But then I've discovered Neuro Heroes, which is basically the UK version of PD Warrior, which is basically the same thing. I just love that book, and it just really inspired me so much. And then I also wanted to hear like great stories of people who actually had not overcome Parkinson's, because they never can, but have lived with it, lived well with Parkinson's. I did find a few people that I later discovered they were dead, or just, because I was like so depressed, like, oh my God. But then I discovered, well, though I knew Michael J. Fox had Parkinson's.
Yeah.
I knew he was still alive, and he wrote this in this lucky man in 2000, but he actually was diagnosed in 1990. Absolutely amazing.
There's a film that came out a couple of years ago, wasn't it?
Exactly, yeah, which is like the story. But this is a very uplifting book because he's a very positive person, even though his Parkinson's is actually really bad. Obviously, he went on to develop Michael J. Fox Foundation, do all the research. It's just a brilliant book to read, and he just counts Parkinson's as being a positive thing in his life, that he feels like if he hadn't been diagnosed, probably would have got divorced, been an alcoholic, not had all his children, and basically he says that he would never swap. He wouldn't. If he got the choice to not have the diagnosis, he would take the diagnosis. Which I was like, okay,
that's remarkable,
great,
yeah,
really inspirational. That's the kind of books I wanted to read, and then I found them, but I had to go to Australia and America to find them. I couldn't find any British ones, but since now I know a few more. But these are my two that I would highly recommend.
So Jonathan, if we turn to you now, you're slightly different. You've had Parkinson's for a bit longer, perhaps as much as 10 years.
I think it's information and inspiration and motivation I'm looking for. And if I think about the books that have inspired me, continue to inspire me, one of them isn't in fact about Parkinson's. It's this book, The Salt Path, which is a memoir of a woman who, with her husband, ended up walking the Southwest Coast Path after they lost their home and livelihood. And in the same week, her husband was diagnosed with a rare brain disease, which is related to Parkinson's, but a lot worse. It doesn't respond to medication. It's called corticobasal degeneration. And the lifespan is generally quite short for people who have this. And this was 12 years ago he was diagnosed. And he and his wife are still walking. I found this. I actually read this book the year before I got diagnosed with Parkinson's, and then when I did get diagnosed, I kind of turned to it for inspiration, because what this book shows is that they started walking the Southwest Coast Path, and he was in a very bad state, and as they walked, he got stronger. And it was almost as if nature was medicine, exercise and nature, the combination of those things. And so that's something that's inspired me a lot. And since then, I read the sequels to The Salt Path, the Wild Silence and the Landlines, and I actually met Raina Wynn and did a day of walking with her along the Thames Path, and to raise money for the PSP Association, which helps people with CBD, and got books signed, and so great fan of her work.
So am I right in thinking there's also a film that's been made of The Salt Path?
Yes, it was premiered yesterday, and I saw it already.
Wow.
And I loved it. Thinking also something that Charlotte mentioned, Norman Doidge. After he wrote the book that Charlotte referred to, he followed up with something called The Brain's Way of Healing, which is a fascinating book. It takes the same theme of neuroplasticity that he explored in the previous book. And what he does in this book is to go deep into case studies of several people who have found their brain diseases or conditions to be much improved through various what I would call alternative energy techniques. And so he goes into light therapy, he goes into sound therapy, he goes into electrical stimulation. And I think I also got inspired by Norman Doidge's book, because his book is a series of case studies of individuals. And one of the individuals he profiles is John Pepper, and John Pepper wrote this book, Reverse Parkinson's Disease, which I think is a very nice mantra to have in your head, reverse it. John Pepper, who's now recently died, developed a technique of fast walking, which he believed helped him to counteract the effects of Parkinson's and to go down on his levodopa, in fact, completely off levodopa. I'm a bit skeptical that he actually had Parkinson's. I think it might have been a misdiagnosis, because I tried the technique myself, and I've read about this, and I'm just not sure it's possible. But
people's stories are what I would really crave more than anything, because I kind of want, especially if I'm feeling down about it, especially in the beginning when it was all just like, it's downhill all the way, baby, just like you haven't got long. And just to feel that that's not going to be the case, I just want to have agency, feel hopeful. I want to be a hopeful person.
And Charlotte, just to come back to you, is there anything else you'd like to see from the books that you've read or that you found very useful?
So science on the one hand, and I'm interested in reading academic research about new developments in Parkinson's disease, but also alternative approaches. So I've been looking at Ayurveda recently. It's really, my reading has sort of taken me off on all these different pathways and really develop my knowledge of different spiritual approaches, different scientific approaches, and that's something I'm enjoying is finding out about not just things related to Parkinson's, but just wellness, health, and I feel like my health has been improved by learning more about different approaches to Parkinson's. There's lots of information out there, and it's really good to find out information, but don't drive yourself mad with just discovering about everything. Books are a great place to start.
I really think a book is a contained thing, which is so lovely compared to going down a horrible rabbit hole on the internet, driving yourself absolutely mad, reading who knows what, who written by who. Whereas at least a book is going to be like a proper contained thing. You can take your time, you can read it in the bath.
Read for pleasure and enjoy yourself, and don't feel like you have to read everything or become an expert in everything. Be curious, but don't need to become obsessed.
That's fantastic advice. Thank you very much.